like there's a momentum to go ahead and start, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start, if that's okay. So anyway, I think everybody knows who I am. Just to remind you, if you don't know, my name is Angie Moats. I'm actually a licensed mental health counselor, have a practice here in the area. And I was good friends with Lynn Grace, who started this chapter of Space Coast International Association of Near-Death Studies. And she passed away before we could get started with this chapter. Her and Deb Davis are the two that really did all of the legwork to put it together. I was the cheerleader in the background and I help Deb out whenever she needs it. So we're in touch a lot just to give her support. She does an amazing job. So welcome everyone, and welcome to, we have Ariel online, and maybe we'll have more Zoom people join us soon. That would be great. So I'm so glad you guys are here and everybody's safe and okay from the storm. So Deb wanted me to be sure to let everybody know that our agenda changed a little bit for October and November. So now next month in October, we're going to have Jacob Cooper as our guest speaker. He's a licensed clinical social worker. He's going to Zoom in to talk to us. And he's got two books. One is called After the Last Breath. And then also this one that Deb has a copy of for us to see is called The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. So he's going to share, this is about his NDE and some of the wisdom he gained from his experience. And he talks a lot about how he helps others, like everybody who's had NDEs, or most people. So that will be October 27th. He has a website if you're interested in finding out more before we meet next month, where you can find out about life after breath and more information about his services, and, you know, kind of get ready for his talk October 27th. And then just down here in November 24th, we're going to have Peggy Robinson. She wrote this book called The Will of a Wildflower. And this is actually in the works to be made into a film. This book is mostly about her childhood, which she had a lot of trauma and abuse in her childhood and some of what she went through. But Angel Studios, which I think they've done a documentary on NDEs last year. Yeah, they're actually contracted to produce this film. So that will be interesting to learn more about her. And she will be here in person in November with her husband. So that would be awesome to see her. But if you have a chance, get a copy of her book and read it. Deb recommends it. She said it's a fascinating story to read from Peggy Robinson. So just make note, we should have all gotten an email from Deb noting the changes in the agenda for October, November. Also, Deb wanted me to be sure and thank Serena Baptista for uploading. She's working on uploading the recordings of our meetings. So right now, I think she has one done, and she'll get more done periodically as she has time. So really appreciate that.
That's wonderful.
If you go to our YouTube channel, which is SCIANDS, SCIANDS.com, or the website, you can click on the YouTube, or you can look us up on YouTube. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Okay. All right. Also, I want to recognize that September is Lynn's birthday. She had a birthday earlier this year. So happy birthday in heaven, Lynn. We miss you. And also, I think Dr. Atwater had a birthday in September as well. So happy birthday, Dr. Atwater. And did everybody do a raffle ticket for the appreciation gift? Everybody has one? So we're going to choose the ticket right now, and then the gift. Yeah, it's right there. Perfect. Awesome. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, glasses, please. Okay, 353503. Yay! Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Hi. We're just getting started. Okay. Okay. So, I think I'll go ahead and it's 3 o'clock. So Dr. Atwater's already started talking a little bit about some of what she's, her book, Forever Angels. about children, which is amazing. And again, like I was saying before, the things that she's done is astounding in her lifetime since 1977, when she had 3 near-death experiences within a span of just a few months. And then about a year or so after that, in 78, she started doing her own research and has interviewed, I know, more than 5,000 people. I'm sure she'll clarify that. So that's just the tip of it. I mean, 19, going to be 21 books published. Her recent book, which is the one I just kind of showed some of you guys, Atwater, The Many Lives and Deaths of PMH Atwater, is fascinating. This is a fascinating book. Tells a lot more about her own life and her childhood growing up and her experiences leading to the near death and then the research and beyond. A lot of things, obstacles that she had to overcome. I also wanted to be sure to mention as well another book that I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but this looks fascinating as well. The Big Book of Near-Death Experiences. And this is somehow funded and helped, I guess, distribute by SCIANDS. But this thing is fantastic. It's just loaded with tons of information, mainly from my understanding about, she's categorized near-death experiences into several different categories based on what she's learned from interviewing thousands and thousands of people and their family members and their healthcare practitioners. And also categorize afterwards how people integrate the experience or how it changes their life. I know that's covered in here, and there's a lot covered in this book. It's a wonderful, wonderful collection. Looks like an awesome reference book. Yeah, it's excellent. So that I would highly recommend any of her books. And then the one she just recommended, Forever Angels, that she's done a lot of research on children and their near-death experiences. Another one Lynn has called Beyond, I'm sorry, Deb. It's like Lynn's here. She is here. Beyond the Light is another one Deb has been reading. But for those of you who don't know, she's, based on everything I've just told you, I mean, she's done just tons of research. She's done speaking engagements. She's been given lots of awards, traveled to speak at seminars and conferences around the world. Her books have been translated into over 12 languages. There's an interesting book, Future Memory, that maybe she'll talk to us about that, updated and reissued. It explores consciousness itself, creation, life, and it's in a labyrinth format. Every sentence, every paragraph, every page is part of the math used to create it. So that's very interesting to me. A manual for developing humans, the books we just pointed out, and many, many others. The separate research that she has with child near-death experiencers, she has a series of 3 focused on that, including the one that we just pointed out, the Forever Angels, but also she has the new children and near-death experiences, Beyond the Indigo Children, Children of the Fifth World, and then the Forever Angels. So, I mean, I could go on, basically. It's just, I am fascinated, and I'm just getting to know Dr. Atwater's work. So basically what she would like for us to do is, if we have any questions for her, I have a list here. If we can't think of any, I have some that Deb's asking. So that's kind of how we'll go, as a format of asking questions. And so how does that sound, Dr. Atwater?
Great.
Awesome. So should we start out with a question? Does that work?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you want us to start out with a question for you? We'll go ahead and get started.
I might start with how I began.
Oh, perfect.
And then you ask away any question you want.
Okay.
I was raped in 1976, miscarried in late 1976, miscarried in early 1977. And each time I died. I died January 2, January 4, and March 29th. So I died three times in 1977. Um, and in my last death, which is March 29, I heard a voice speak. I call it the voice like none other because I don't know what else to call it. And that voice was very specific. And it said, test revelation. You are to do the research. One book for each death. It did not name book one. I kind of think maybe that might have been coming back to life, but I don't know for sure. It did names book 2 and 3. Book 2 is Future Memory. If you haven't ever read that book, do so. It's not a book, really. It's a labyrinth. And it's built on the order of a labyrinth. You enter like you would enter a labyrinth, walking through the mouth of a labyrinth, and it will go just like a labyrinth, just exactly like walking a labyrinth. So you can't skip read. You stay on the path, and when you come out, then it's like having gone through the labyrinth and you come back a different person, different in the sense that your brain works a little bit differently. And that's the purpose of future memory is to help you sort of build a better brain, if you will, or enable your brain and all of that that helps the brain to move up to a different level of function. So future memory is a brain changer. The third one was a manual for developing humans. And if you haven't discovered that yet, do. It will help anybody and everybody, not only near-death experiencers, but anybody who wants to live a better life, who wants to know more, be more, feel better about yourself. Even acupressure facelifts are in that book. I mean, everything is in that book. And then given to you in a way that you can use that material not only to build a better life, but to understand better what it's all about. The old idea, what's it all about, Alfie? It's that kind of thing, um, in that it will help you to realize where you go in a near-death experience, why you go, and again, what it's all about. Now, the big book of near-death experiences, I urge everybody possible to buy that book. The money does not go to me, it goes to SCIANDS. I gave that book to SCIANDS. So all the money that is made on that book, everybody who buys the book is helping SCIANDS do its work. So that book then is purposeful in the sense that it's literally helping SCIANDS, but it's the only book in the world that is an encyclopedia of the near-death experience. It is a fun encyclopedia. There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of cartoons. It will help you to understand every aspect of a near-death experience, a spiritual transformation, all of these things that we can go through that changes our brain and changes our body and changes our mind. And it's all in that one book. And remember, everything that you pay for that book goes to SCIANDS. It does not go to me. I'm working now, hopefully, on my last research book. It's called Aliens and the Near-Death Experience. And that book will come out next year. I hope to be able to present it at the next big, SCIANDS conference, which will be in Chicago. And that's where I started. That's where I met Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and was able to describe for her what I went through 3 times. And and she told me those were near-death experiences. Well, I didn't know what a near-death experience was. We're talking 1977, folks.
Mhm.
But she's the one who laid it all out for me. And I was able then to be a part of her life several times. And even going to California and Shantinalaya and, her um, property there then where she would bring people in and work with them. And so I was one of the people that was able to do that and learn a great deal from Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And we remained friends for some time. So that was a real experience. But again, the biggest experience for me was learning um, what I had gone through because I had no idea. 1977, who knew? Elizabeth knew, but Raymond Moody's book wasn't out yet, or if it was just hardly out. So everything was brand new, and it was Elizabeth who helped me the most. And after I met her, I went back to Idaho. I'm from Idaho, southern Idaho. The reclaimed deserts of southern Idaho. That's where I come from. And you betcha, good Idaho here. And went back there and sold a home I had just bought. My 3 children just decided they wanted to live elsewhere, and they were gone. Stored away or sold everything I had, and stuffed everything else in my little Ford Pinto, and traveled across the United States, going first uh, to the shoreline of California and watching the sunset silver in the Pacific, and then meandering across the United States and then watching the sunrise golden in the Atlantic. So, and I stayed there. I'm a, people ask about my childhood, and I say, well, which one? I had 5 fathers and two mothers, so which one? Uh, I was raised in the reclaimed deserts of southern Idaho by Norwegians, the Sung family from the Sung Fjord. And so I had a very different upbringing by these wonderful Norwegian people. And and then later on, my mother finally settled down, finally got married, and married a police officer. And so I was raised in a sort of in a police station. And Dad, whenever he could, take me home because sometimes I had to stay late at school and I'd walk to the police station and he'd take me home in the squad car. And this one time he had a call. So all he could do was answer the call. So my protocol was hit the floor, and I did. I hit the floor and ran, and he would go around a corner on 2 wheels, and away we'd go. And my television set was the squad windshield, where I could, stare and watch and hear what was going on with these police raids and things he would have to do. And sometimes he'd have to fight. And, this little kid in the squad car is like, whoa. And yes, I was raised in a police station. And one of the wonderful things that would happen is, then they had skeleton keys. I mean, real, you had the real skeleton hole. And so in the room where they would talk to the witnesses and interrogate the people, I could sort of bend down a little bit and watch in that keyhole and listen what was going on. And invariably people would say, well, just, if I hadn't have opened that door, nothing would have happened. Or if I hadn't gone with these people, nothing would have ever happened. In my little kid's brain, I'm saying, well, stupid, if you already knew, why'd you go? And so, we sort of grew up wondering about adults. Adults are really very foolish people. Uh, and you find a lot with child experiencers. A lot of them develop synesthesia, and so do adults, by the way. That's where the limbic system in the brain alters, and it's called synesthesia. Um, in my case, I could hear numbers and see color. Well, no, that's not. Wait. I could hear numbers, and I could see thoughts. And so in the first grade, also realized this is a time of World War II, and this is the time of the bombing in Hawaii. And, these horrible things that were going on with Hitler and the Nazis and what and Manila and all these things that are going on in Hawaii. And I was walking to my school, and these are long blocks, like New York City blocks, long blocks to get to the school. And always in those days, the government, if anyone died in your family, the government would send you a great big huge gold star that you would put in your living room window, that would say someone in your family died in the war effort. And my walk to school then would be a walk of death, because there were many families, many homes that had these gold stars. Well, this one place, I'll never forget it. I think it was 4 or 5 new gold stars overnight. And I just stood there and sobbed. I don't remember a single morning in all of first grade when I didn't have to stop my shudders and my sobs just to get in the doorway of the school. And of course, I was born with synesthesia. And I wasn't a near-death kid. I was just born that way. So I had to sit on a tall stool in front of the class wearing a tall conical hat that said dunce on it, as an example of a bad child who told lies. Well, I never lied. I mean, I always told the truth. But no one had ever heard of synesthesia in those days. And so by the end of the first grade, I just decided all adults were stupid, and I never wanted to be an adult when I grew up.
Good
So,
plan.
I mean, adults are stupid. So, and I started my first double-blind research project at the age of 5. I was always challenging everything. I just knew and grew up that way, challenging everything and everyone. If you say something, I want to prove it. And I just, that's the kind of kid I was. And so we're talking then about the time when I was raped. This happened. I was a mother, 3 children, and one fellow who was coming to visit. I had started Idaho's first nonprofit metaphysical corporation by the name of Inner Forum. And I and everybody else that were on my board, we were bringing in people by the thousands to the programs we or I started. And this was every month for a while, and then every other month. But we would draw in hundreds of people. And I was the kind of person that if I didn't understand something, then why? Let's let's get to the bottom of it. And I'd bring in experts. You know, if you want to know about channeling, if you want to know about metaphysics, then prove it. Show people. So we would bring in lots of speakers, and it was at one of these times when a particular fellow who came in um, then came back again in the night to visit me, and very incoherent. Said something about an accident on the highway and all of this kind of stuff. I don't know if it's real or not. And I had two daughters yet home. My son was long gone, and you know, empty bedrooms. And I said, well, you know, just take a bedroom, over there. I have to go to bed early because I was taking my very first college class. Imagine, I'm going to college. Wow. I'm an older woman and I'm going to college. Yes, yay. And so I'm taking mechanical drawing in the mathematical department of Idaho State College in Boise, Idaho. And this was just so important to me. I mean, wow, finally I get to go to college. And my oldest daughter was there too. And so the two of us were walking arm in arm down the math, you know, the big hallways in the mathematical department of Boise State College, and that was such a big deal. And it was shortly after um, that this fellow came to my home at night. My daughters didn't know what to do and said, you know, you get to sleep it off in my son's bedroom because he was not there. And then I went to bed and went to sleep. Yeah, I'm a sound sleeper. And he chose my bedroom. And I was raped. And the next morning he left. And you really don't know what to do. Some women do. I was one that did not. And it took me 20 years to scream. It took me 20 years to scream. And those women who have been raped will understand exactly what I'm talking about. It takes a long time to integrate something like that. And it took me a long time. And that's when I died. And again, I died January 4, 1977, and again, March 29 of 1977. So in 3 months, I had 3 near-death experiences. Later that fall, so we're talking October, November, I had a complete relapse. So 1977 wasn't my year. Uh, I had to learn again how to crawl, how to stand, how to walk, how to tell the difference between left and right, how to see properly, hear properly, and all of that kind of thing. And I was just really dealing with those kinds of issues, and finally got to the point where I was reasonably coherent. And that fall, I think it was November 3 or 4, in Seattle, Washington, they had the Mind Miraculous Symposium. And I attended that. Well, you know, the doctor said, okay, my friends, could she come? The doctor said, okay. Can you imagine a doctor getting up at 6:30 in the morning to give me a shot? He did. what a fantastic doctor. And so I made it up to Seattle, Washington, the Mind Miraculous Symposium, which was held in the Seattle Center. Um, I couldn't, Uri Geller was there, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was there, you know, a huge crowd. I don't know how many people were there, but a huge crowd. And this physicist from the Southern California was there. And it was his theory, his knowing that there is an eternal now, that everything happens at the same time in the same place. And he called it the eternal now. And you can prove it through physics. So he flashed up on this giant screen his physics of the eternal now, what it would look like or could look like, the reality of it. And so I flashed it up there, and it was exactly what I saw in my third near-death experience. And I got up and I was crying, and I left and just sort of collapsed under a wall sconce in the hallway. And all I could do was rock back and forth and rock back and forth. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He saw it too. I'm not crazy. And those people who've had a near-death experience will relate to this, because you don't know what's happening to you. Most of us, at least, don't know. And it's really a near-death experience. And you need to get the big book of near-death experience. So you'll find out all the different symptoms and things that are occurring or can occur, what can happen to a child or an adult. And it's the world's only encyclopedia of the near-death experience, but it's done fun. There's a lot of cartoons in it, that kind of thing. But all the money you pay for the book goes to SCIANDS. It does not go to me. I gave the book to SCIANDS. So, what can I say about this life of research? And it has been, because when I said, yes, I will do it, I meant it. And this is what I've done now for 44 years. And with a research base in nearly 5,000 adults and children, I'm on my 21st book. That book will not be done until next year. The title of that book will be Aliens and the Near-Death Experience. Yes, I'm talking about aliens, because we talked about that a lot in Tucson, Phoenix, at this last conference. The conferences of SCIANDS are always the latter part of August and maybe the first day or two of September, always at the Labor Day weekend. And so you want to plan that in your activities each year, because if you miss an SCIANDS conference, you are missing something huge and something wonderful. And I can't recommend them enough to anybody. At the one near Phoenix that we just had, we had nearly 800 people there. That's not counting those that got it online. That's bodies, people there. It was just huge, massive. And the one in August will be, or the one next year will be even more so, I guarantee. And I want to be the speaker there, and I want to retire as a researcher of near-death experiences. By then, it will be 45 years. I think that's enough. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll quit writing books, but they won't be research. I've had enough research, folks. Sorry, I've had enough of that. But I want to get this last book. I want to get into the alien factor. We covered that in Arizona this year. A huge amount of people turned out for that. They wanted to know more about the subject, and that some near-death experiencers are encountering aliens. So I've been researching that for about a year and a half now because that voice returned. Yes, it did. It came back. And it's only time. Came back. What was that? About 2 years ago. Anyway, it was about 3:15 in the morning, and it said I was to do research on aliens in a near-death experience, and to be more specific, those people who either during their near-death experience or within 1 year afterward either saw or felt or somehow encountered an alien. I don't mean they were born with it. I don't mean they saw it as a child. A lot of them did. I mean those who saw or somehow encountered an alien during their near-death experience or within 1 year after. Not a year and a half, 1 year. And I found that very difficult to find them. I finally found, I think it was, 34, 38, I forget how many. So I started the book, and I thought it would be done by the end of September. Well, it's almost October now, not done. And I discovered that there needs to be a lot more in it, especially about myself, because I needed to talk about another experience I had. And I need to be specific about the first type of experience I had. And it goes back thousands of years. So we're talking about a different venue. We're talking about a different way of looking at aliens. People sometimes say, well, I was an alien or I saw an alien. No, this is far greater and bigger than that. And so Aliens in the Near-Death Experience will come out next year, I hope. I do have a publisher. If the publisher hasn't given up with me. I've written several times. I haven't heard anything back, so I don't know. But I'm going to write the book anyway.
Right.
And if one publisher won't take it, then maybe another one will. But I've already been paid, the initial fee. So that's my next book. And John Mack will be involved in that. Dr. John Mack, the very famous Harvard psychiatrist who in his work discovered people who either met aliens or spoke of a previous life as an alien. And John Mack and I had reached a conclusion where we would talk about what he wanted to talk about, what I wanted to talk about, going further back than anybody else was doing. And I would be up in the Harvard area in a month. We made a date, and that's when John Mack died in England.
Oh.
So we never got together.
Mm.
And but I still have the material. And that voice was quite specific that needs to come out.
Mm.
And I don't want it to, but it's only the second time the voice has ever spoken to me. It's not one of these guides and guardians that's always talking to you. Nope, not that kind of voice. This is a very different kind of voice. And it's only the second time it's ever spoken to me. So, I'm going to do it, and also for John Mack's sake, because he and I were going to go further in this particular aspect of aliens. So it's something that has not been tackled at all. So it's coming down the pike, and I'll get at it in a week. I say in a week because next week my husband and I are journeying to Virginia Beach to attend the Ancient Aliens Conference.
Awesome.
And we do this every year. Every year, when we pay our taxes, we get our tax return. We take that tax return and we pay for the Ancient Aliens Conference, which of course is booked in advance. And we do that every year. We've been doing it for decades now, to be sure that we would have the money to go to the conference, because that is our biggie, to be able to go. So we're going to go. And so we're going next week. And then when I get back from that, if you'll pardon the phrase, come hell or high water, I am going to take this book that isn't done, and finish it. So that's coming ahead for me. And when it is finally done, then that's when I can breathe a sigh of relief and say, I did my work.
Oh, wow.
I did what I was told to do when I died. Yeah, so I'll shut up.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I guess we're going to open up now for questions.
Hey, can she hear me from here?
Can you hear her okay? You want to speak up like really loud?
Dr. Atwater?
Did you hear me?
Yes, I'm wondering about your forever angels. I noticed there were some testimonies in there about Abe Lincoln and
And
how in
the
the world
Forever
did you find
Angels.
that kind of
If
research?
you haven't got that book, do. Here it is. It's children's near-death experiences. Now, I've written a number of books on children's near-death experiences and children in general. As they change and as they grow, the generations go by. But this one, the Forever Angels, you need to get this one because it takes how do I put this into words? Anyone who's had a near-death experience between womb and the age of 5. I say womb because a number of children have their near-death experience in the womb. Some of them have it during birth itself, and then maybe a few years afterward. And most of these people do not understand ions. They don't want any part of ions. Bear in mind, they have no understanding of the world. their understanding is before the world, in their place where they were. And so now they're wearing a human body. They're in a world that they cannot necessarily understand. So it's been a little difficult for most of these kids to be able to handle being in a human body and understanding why their world is not the same as the world they're now in. And I say read it because a lot of us are, a lot of people really are child experiencers. And I say that because after the book came out, oh, maybe a couple of months after it came out, I got a phone call from a police officer in downtown New York City. And he was crying. The man was in his late 30s. He could not understand why he was always different from everybody else until he read the book. And then he could understand why he was different. And understanding that helped him then to accept himself, that he was okay. There are so many adults who had an experience as a child and don't really understand why they're different or odd or not like everybody else. Let me give, I said up to the age of 5, but some of them, maybe 6. I want to talk briefly about Marcel Vogel. He died of double lobar pneumonia at the age of 6. During his experience, get this, he was able to write this down. A 6-year-old, he wrote it down. You will be a phosphor chemist. You will do pioneering work in luminescence. You will write a book and create your own business. A 6-year-old kid? Yeah. I mean, but of course, Marcel Vogel did that. And the Vogel crystals are the best that, was ever faceted. And then you've got Olaf Sundin. He was a little bit older. He was in, I think, Norway or Sweden, I'm not sure. It was a botched tonsillectomy. He was filled with all kinds of knowledge. He became got his PhD in chemistry. 100 chemical patents on trees, paper, and pulp. And he got all that from his near-death experience.
Wow.
I mean, near-death experiences aren't just, you meet your heavenly helper. They can be quite specific, and they usually are quite specific. And the case of Olaf Sundin, and what a case I like to talk about is that of Penny. It's in the book, and she was still in her mother's womb, and her mother was smoking. I mean, her mother's smoking a cigarette. She got that smoke in the uterus where she was, and she was coughing in her mother's uterus, and she hated it whenever her mother smoked. Now, bear that in mind, everybody. If you're carrying a child, that child can smell you smoking, and is affected by that. Here's another one I want you to know about. This is Alma, and her case is in the book. She was, let's see how old she was. She was about, I think, two and a half. And a male friend came to visit the family, noticed she was in her bedroom, and the family didn't think anything of it. He went into her bedroom, shut the door, and got on top of her and raped her. Now, this is a little kid, like maybe two and a half, three. And she left her body and she's viewing it from above, looking down. Please know that is not an out-of-body experience. Hear this. That is not an out-of-body experience. It is self-defense. You'll find this with all children. You'll also find it a lot with adults. When they leave their body, when they're being assaulted and they're leaving their body, that's self-defense. That's how they protect themselves. That's how they protect their memory and their brain. They leave the body. So that's self-defense. Please know that. And you can have dark light experiences, not just bright light experiences. I discussed one in the book. It's the case of Star. And I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to hold it up here.
Yeah.
And she then saw what was going to happen and was preparing for it in a dark light experience coming into light. So I just want you to know things like that can happen. I've already talked about that one.
Yeah. Dr. Atwater, Mary has another question.
Sure, baby. Yeah, I can shut up here. What do you want to hear about?
She wants to know how you found out about Abe Lincoln and Albert Einstein's early childhood experiences. Did you read about that?
Certainly doing a lot of reading.
Okay.
But just in my research. And it's the same way with that a very famous actor. What is his name? British actor. It's not coming to me right now, but that's also in the list. And you'll notice in that list in the book, this one that happened a number of centuries ago in England, and this child was hit by, almost hit by a lightning. And then afterward, as she grew up, she had this unusual interest in shells and mollusks and shells and animals shells. So she started researching that and became one of England's greatest researchers. And it was all because of her near-death experience when she was just a child.
Wow. We have another question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are aliens friendly to us? Are they here to help us?
Dr. Atwater, she's asking, are aliens friendly? Are they here to help us?
Yes and no.
Oh,
Some yes, some no.
right. Just like humans.
Yeah, they're not all nice. Sorry.
Mhm.
Some of them are okay, but some of them are frightful. Yeah, don't believe anybody who says they're all wonderful and they're here to help us. That's not true.
Yeah. Wow, we have another question, and this question is from Dr. Flora Vena, which she was a student at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, the Sophia University, and also the California Institute for Integral Studies. And
I'm very familiar with that group.
yeah,
Yes.
she studied under you, I guess, a little bit there.
Well, we use you as our main reference.
Yeah, you were her main reference. Anyway, this is Dr. Flora, and she has a question for you.
Such a pleasure to see you. You're like a movie.
Yeah, here I
am. And as far as like the geographical domain, I know it's non-local, but the interdimensional being, and then like the in-between lines that you're studying over at Sophia and CIIS, is that the same geographical sense that the near-death experience also occurs?
A rough one to answer. A near-death experience begins with death.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean dead death.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to say here is, let's say a child 7 years old having the appendix out, and they have, and they die on the table,
Mhm.
or come close to dying, but never really die. That's still a near-death experience. You don't have to die to have a near-death experience. You can come close to death, and that's still a near-death experience. Let's see.
The reason why I'm asking is because integrating the movements like the in-between lives movement with the NDE, with John Max, where he's coming from, like with Abraham Maslow, and then also with the alien movement and all that. They're all occurring, the research is all occurring all at once. Is it like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, or are they all overlapping and know each other, or are we all gonna coalesce one day?
Well, maybe yes, maybe yes. It's like when the near-death experience first began to be noticed. And it was Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross who gave us really working papers that we could all use. It wasn't Raymond Moody. Raymond Moody would never have been published had it not been for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross who enabled Raymond Moody to be published. And Elizabeth then, she validated my experience too. She validated a number of people's experiences because she was able then to handle people who would come into her office and sit down and talk to her, and then get up and leave and vanish. They were never people that you and I could recognize. But they came into her office and dialogue with her, and then when they turned to leave, they vanished. So obviously that was not a flesh and blood person, although to her it seemed like they were. So Elizabeth was open to this. And because of that, she opened doors to a lot of people. Elizabeth was one of these people who, in a psych ward or wherever, would simply sit on a bench and let people talk. She wouldn't say anything. She lets people talk. And that enabled her to learn more and more and more and more because she'd watch the bodies. You know, that's what I was trained to do. You don't just listen to people talk. You've got to watch their body. What are they doing with their shoulders and their hands? What are they doing with their hips? What are they doing with their back? Especially if somebody walks by. Does it change the body posture? This is very, very, very important if you're doing research. You've got to watch the body posture. What is the body doing as they're talking, as you're talking, as you're dialoguing? What is your body wanting to do as you're talking to them? What is their body wanting to do as they're talking to you? Watch that. You'll learn a lot from watching body language. Now with little children, you never want to be above eye level because they can lie if you do. You never want to be above eye level. Never. So if you're interviewing a child that's maybe 3 or 4, guess where you're on? You're on the floor. And if the kid's maybe 3 years old, you're really on the floor. And that's where most of my work with children came from. You never want to be above the child's eye level. Now, although that's not necessarily true with adults you want to really watch the hip and shoulder movement. You cannot trust just questions and answers. No. You want to watch those bodies. What is the body doing? And that will help you a lot in your work. You can never rely just on questions and answers. Never.
So to follow up, is it, Dr. Flora, are you suggesting, and maybe Dr. Atwater is like the research on NDEs and aliens, is it at the place now where research on NDEs in general was at back in the 70s, where it was new and people's stories weren't necessarily believed, and people were starting
Let's go back to the
listen.
40s.
Oh, okay, there you go. And so I guess, is that what you're
It's
asking?
really, really
for?
new, so be very
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah, we're at a new phase of the NDEs with the aliens.
Really brand new. Now in Tucson, well, no, Phoenix, the last conference, and I was in the special alien part. People, the experts, quote unquote, are basing their dialogue with you based on what they've seen or heard. They may be near-death experiencers, then out-of-body experiencers, then on and on and on. You still have to be kind of careful of the material, even though it seems to be well-based. You still want to be kind of careful. We had several people offering their experiences with this, and what they gave was good material, but know that it's initial material. it's not material that's been worked on for a number of years. This is new material. And even though we had a lot of it at the conference in near Phoenix last month, it's still new material. And when I talk about this next year in Chicago, I intend to emphasize that. But I also intend to stretch the subject even further. Because in my own experience, when you're talking about what you've seen and what you've felt and what you know, sometimes that stretches you back further than you are prepared to deal with. And that was true in my case. Not because of I not because I didn't want to know about it, talk about it, face it, but because I wasn't ready yet to offer it to others.
Is that, Dr. Atwater, are you referring to your NDE experience of having more of an overview of civilization? That took
No,
you
I
back?
was well,
It took you back thousands of years?
took me back to the Eocene period.
Right, okay.
So that's back a long way.
Yeah, okay, so that connects that, okay.
So when we're talking about alien experiences, they can be very, very challenging because we don't know enough.
Yeah,
We've got a lot of people now that are opening up and talking about it. I'm going to open up next year and talk more about it, but still, we've got to do a lot more research before we can really make any statements about this.
yeah, yeah. We have another question.
Sure.
Animal Light series.
Mary's wanting you to speak about your Animal Light series.
Animal
It's a children's book. Is that a children's book?
books.
Yeah. Animal
Yes,
Light
it is.
series.
Yes. How many of those? I'd have to go over there because it's not in my brain. It's sitting on that desk over there. Yes. My feeling was at the time that children, in order to get a handle of this, to be able to talk about things, need a coloring book. And so I designed a number of them. And they are the Animal Light series. And what I encourage parents or grandparents to do is to buy this series, and then the child can color it in. You know, they can talk about it. You can talk about it. Talk about maybe a particular animal. Let's say, what was it? Little dogs being a litter in mama's tummy, and one of them suffocated. And how do you handle that then for these all of these little babies being born, but one of them is born dead?
Hmm.
And handicaps. How do you handle handicaps with children? So I certainly recommend any adult, any grandma, grandpa, mom or dad maybe a teenager, getting a hold of the Animal Light series and go through it with the child and ask the child, do you remember anything like this before you were born? Maybe ask mom and dad, do you remember anything like this before you were born? So the Animal Light series enables the child and the parent or the grandparent to talk about things they would never talk about normally. Because there it is, there's that little animal that maybe a horse, maybe a kitten, maybe a monkey, all these little animals, and what the animal went through, and then that's a lot easier for a child than to look at what the animal went through. And was this anything like what they went through? And would they like to talk about this? And it's a wonderful way of opening that kind of door for children. So I recommend anybody buying the Animal series. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We
Yes,
have
thank you
another
for
question. We have another question from Serena.
Hi, Dr. Atwater. I just wanted to thank you so much for doing this for us. I met you at the conference and you gave me this big hug, and you did that for a lot of people and just shared your light with a lot of people. I saw you just greeting everybody, and that's a unique thing, I feel, I mean, in our world today. So for you to share all of your research as well as sharing you, I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And thank you for speaking here with us today too.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Absolutely, for being there, because it's an odd kind of day, thanks to Helena or Helene,
Yeah.
that big hurricane. It's an odd kind of day. But nonetheless, we're people, and we need to talk,
Yeah.
and we need to talk about these kinds of things that we normally never talk about. You know, if you're talking about a near-death experience, well, that's nice and pleasant. The person leaves their body and things happen and the person comes back to their body. There's a lot more things that can happen. And depending on the age of the individual, I know it was very difficult for me to integrate my experience. And had it not been for this physicist from Southern California, talking about, you know, the forever, this question of now, what is now? Had it not been for him, I don't know what I'd have done. But hearing him talk and showing through physics what he was talking about,
Force field.
that opened the door for me. And nothing else would have. But that did.
It's like you felt it in all of your being all at once. It just came into you when you saw that presentation. I read about it in your book, your latest book. He showed the torus field. Is that right? He showed the picture of the torus field and how the energy works and overlaps. And it's hard to put into words. And when you experience that, people don't have words for that unless you're a scientist, I guess, like him.
Yeah, like him.
Yeah.
And through what he was able to say, I was able to understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't go to the average minister. I don't care what church, and go to the with some of these experiences because they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Some do, but most do not. So I needed a physicist, and I got a physicist. I was one of the lucky ones.
We got another question for you.
About
Sure.
children remembering their past lives, how does all that integrate with like the death?
No, I'm not hearing you.
So Mary wants to know, children who remember their past lives, how does that overlap, or what does that have in common with the children's near-death experiences? Remembering their past lives, right?
I cover that a lot in the Forever Angels. Of course, with some it helps, with some it hurts. It depends on the offerings. With most children, it's going to depend on their age. So from, before birth, during birth, on up to about the age of 5, you're going to be able to use that book I wrote, The Forever Angels. It's going to be very helpful to you. But if the child is older than that, it might not be that helpful. Again, it makes a big difference the age of the child, and how willing you are to be a real researcher. And I say that because what is used today to do research is a computer and questions that you receive via computer. Well, that's not what I call research. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, very one.
That's not what I call research.
Not personal.
Now, I've done a little bit of that. So I have done some of that, but most of my research is one-on-one, especially with children. It makes a big difference when a person is telling you their experience, what they're doing with their shoulders and hips and head. It makes a you've got to understand body language. Go to school and take a class on body language. They are offered. Learn what you can about body language. Makes a huge difference, massive difference.
So then you would follow their body language to kind of know the direction they're going and how to kind of follow their lead with the interview.
Well, with the body language, you're going to know whether they're fooling you or not,
Right.
whether they're telling you the truth or not, whether they are telling you all of their story or not. You're going to see that in the body language. You're going to see it right away. Doesn't take much at all.
Yeah.
Like for instance, in a newspaper, when a person is a court trial or whatever, and if they've got their hand down, they're not telling you everything. And if they've got the hand maybe behind their back, or maybe holding their hand like this, they're not going to telling you much at all. That's lying.
So have
Or
you,
can
so- I'm sorry. So did you, have you had to weed out certain cases by interviewing and seeing that they're really not telling the truth and you kind of,
Yes,
okay.
especially with
gotcha.
children, especially with
Yeah.
children.
Gotcha. That's
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
to
again,
know.
you can't be above eye level with a child,
Right.
ever. And with adults and teenagers, you've really got to, you've got to notice what they're doing. You know, they got a shoulder over here, getting a little cocky. You know, you're going to see that with the body language.
Mhm.
So you're going to pick up right away whether or not they're actually telling you the truth or not, or maybe they're stretching things. You're going to see it in the body and what they're doing with their body. Body language, if you are an interviewer, you must know body language. This is one of the big gripes I have, again, with research that is all done now on a computer, and it's just numbered questions. And you're not seeing the person. You're not seeing how they're handling their questions. Yes, you're getting information. This is where most research today is done by questions on a computer. And yes, at least you're getting something. Um, and of course, SCIANDS has their own journal. Um, so you're getting something, but you're not getting the full picture.
Yeah, and
And
they could
that
feel it.
really bothers me. That bothers me.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking dollars and cents here. We're talking colleges and universities and degrees, and I understand why they're going to a computer and using the computer, um, doing most of their research now on computers. I mean, I understand that. Um, and they're learning to ask very clever questions that they can then judge in a certain way. Um, I, I don't fully understand that, so you need to ask someone like Jan Holden, who's the head of the IANS. Ask someone like Dr. Bruce Grayson, who's a psychiatrist. He's going to be able to help you on that. I'm just an old timer. I don't do that kind of stuff.
Well, actually, Deb had a question that she left with me. She had a few, and one of them was about researchers, and she wanted to know, who do you think in your lifetime have been the best researchers of NDE to date, aside from yourself, of course?
Well, that's really hard to assess. Bruce Grayson has done a good job. Dr. Pin van Lommel in Holland has done a good job. There's several researchers in England who just done excellent work. So it's really difficult for me to say better or best. I prefer instead that you get a hold of Jan Holden, who's the president of IANS, and and uh, their journal, our journal, IANS, the Journal of Near-Death Studies. Read that journal. They've done the various people, I think, have done a pretty good job, and they'll go back and redo things. So I would urge any of you who are going to classes and this is part of your degree or that kind of thing. You really want to get hold of Jan Holden, and you want to then follow what's written in the journal. because there's a lot of good stuff in the journal. Really, there is.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. We have another question. If you are still up for it.
Sure,
Okay, we got two more questions. If you can-
sure.
Yeah, so I just had a question about people that are able to, or that have early childhood memories. I know that, there are some that have pre-birth memories, but.
Oh, indeed. So,
For instance, myself, I have memories from when I was 2 days old and I didn't know what to make of it. So can you speak a little bit about that for us or for me?
well, there's a lot who have pre-birth memories. What do you do with that? I would advise that you just take a look at it, see how it feels to you. If it feels accurate, then bring it into yourself and work on it. See what it's telling you. And just literally work on it and see what it's telling you. I wouldn't depend on it, but I would look at it and again, see what it's telling you. A lot of these kids that are having pre-birth memories, it's telling them that the real world is this incredible river that just goes on and on and on. And once in a while, we drop down and have a life. And then when we die, we go back to the river. It gives you a different way of viewing life and death. And it gives you a different way of viewing intelligence and where that comes from. And again, the book with the Forever Angels will be helpful because I do deal with that issue. But absolutely honor pre-birth memories. Those have meaning for you, so honor those. It's like that police officer in New York City. You know, he's in his late 30s. He found out that his pre-birth memories were solid. They were real. That it's okay. It's okay to have those kind of memories. It's absolutely okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It's absolutely okay to have them.
So I just wanted to clarify, I personally didn't have pre-birth memories. I remember being 2 days old and my mom was bringing me from the hospital home and I described later in my late 20s. I described the whole thing to my mom because I thought it was a dream. So would that still be considered a pre-birth memory, although I was?
Still, a lot of kids have that.
Huh?
A lot of kids have that. And they'll tell their moms or dads all kinds of things about before they were born and what mom and dad were doing. I even had a couple of kids who drew their conception.
Oh my
Drew a
God.
picture of it, gave it to their parents. And their parents were so embarrassed. Oh, they're so embarrassed. But the kid was right.
That's
You
funny.
know, they drew the picture and gave it to the parents, and the parents, oh, you were watching when we were having intercourse, and you know, that happens many times. These little kids are, you know, hovering around. And, uh,
Waiting to drop down.
Wait,
you know,
pop
but-
in.
Yeah. We had one more question from Martha.
Hello. I apologize ahead of time if this is only peripherally related, but I've heard your name mentioned many times in the past in association with the Monroe Institute. And I was wondering if that is a useful tool in becoming more aware.
I'm not sure I got all of your question.
She's wondering if she has seen your name affiliated in some way with the Monroe Institute, and she's
Yeah.
wondering if their
I used to
practices.
teach there.
Yeah,
I used to
she's
teach.
Is that a
Mhm.
good, following the Monroe Institute teachings, workshops, et cetera, is that a good avenue to take for, I guess,
Well,
expanding?
bear in mind that I've not been part of the Monroe Institute for about a decade now. But I used to teach there for several decades. And then it changed. Of course, you know, a lot of things changed. And the way they do things there has changed too. So I don't know how they're doing things now, but I know it's a good outfit. I know that they teach good material. They have good teachers. I can say that. But you know, the way it was way back when, when I was there, uh, um, y- we did a lot of things. I did a lot of things there that I think were really healthy and really good that they don't do now. So, you know, I can't offer anything one way or another. It's too far of a drive now for me to drive down there. When I say down there, I'm talking about a major highway. Because I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, and you need to go down the road almost like you were going to North Carolina to get there. And it's really not that far. It's maybe an hour journey. But it's not something my husband or I want to travel anymore. And I think they got a little tired of me anyway.
Can you tell us briefly what the Monroe
good
Institute
outfit.
is? Can you
What?
tell us briefly what the Monroe Institute is for those who don't know the Monroe Institute?
Bob Monroe was a very famous and fairly wealthy New York reporter or something like this. I'm going to get some of the story mixed up, but and he had an out of body experience, and it bothered him because he couldn't understand how this can happen. You know, how can you leave your body? So he started then researching that. How can that happen? And then he caused, you know, various events to occur and got deeper and deeper into the mechanics of it and how we can research this. And that's when he started the Monroe Institute. And of course, I've been there many times. It's a wonderful institute. They have a wonderful library, various rooms. They do a good job of teaching teaching not only altered states of consciousness, but other realms of consciousness and how you can get there and deal with that and do it in a healthy way. So I would recommend them. It's a good group.
Yeah, I can also add that our founder, Len Grace, went to Monroe Institute several times to study there and read their books and did workshops there. She took the workshops there, meditation workshops.
Well, we wanted to, never really did anything.
Yeah.
They do a good job. They do a good job. I think it was a lot better when I was there, of course.
Of course.
But it's a good group. Yeah.
Well, I think we have to wrap it up unless anybody has a pressing question that they want to ask before we do. Yeah, one more. We got one more that then we'll wrap
Okie
it up.
doke.
All right.
What does PMH stand for?
Did you hear that one?
PMH does not stand for anything. Before my husband and I were to be married, I was a numerologist.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out, what kind of name should I have, and should it be this way or this way? And I couldn't figure it out. So I gave it to God. You name me. And I was renting rooms from a retired couple. And one night, I had this incredible vision. And what I saw was black, beautiful, beautiful black. And in that black was huge, shimmering white lettering, P period, M period, H period, Atwater. And I was so shocked that I jumped out of bed, and then the colors reversed. And I was almost white wall, and now the colors were that beautiful black, P period, M period, H period. One of them almost hit my nose. And I just go screaming out of my bedroom. And the retired couple, are just wondering, what's wrong? And so I, in the kitchen nook, and told them what happened. And I said, that has got to be the dumbest, stupidest, craziest name I've ever heard in my life. And then I caught myself. And I mean, I asked for God's help. What am I doing? Damning something God gave me? I don't know. So I went back into prayer. And at the end of 9 days, I felt like I'd been born with that name. So I figured, well, God knows more than I do. So when Terry and I were married, that's when a woman can legally change her name. I changed my name to, PMH Atwater, with periods or not. It didn't matter. So from marriage on, I've been PMH Atwater. Oh, well, my first book was Coming Back to Life. And the second one was Beyond the Light. And they came out then, written by Dr. PMH Atwater. Well, everybody thought I was a man. So my research was accepted.
Wow.
My research would never have been accepted if I had a feminine name. Never.
Back in that time period.
Never. God knows more than I did.
Wow.
So by changing my name, I enabled what was to be correct happen. I mean, my research would never have been accepted with a female name. Never. It would never have happened.
Wow.
So that was the purpose of PMH Atwater.
Awesome.
Of course, it's been PMH Atwater ever since, because that's my name.
Mhm.
And so people call me by my birth name. That's okay if they want to do that. But my name is PMH. And no, they do not stand for anything.
Gotcha. Excellent. Yay.
That's just my name. I mean, look, God knows more than I do. So
That's, thank
what
you
can I
so
say?
much. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with all of us today. We really appreciate it. It's such an honor that you spent time with us, and we are so grateful. And like Serena said earlier, not only for your just piles and miles of research that help the community and people in general, but for your light and for sharing with us your conviction to listening to guidance and spirit and what that truly means. Thank you.
And you're always
Oh.
welcome to visit again.
Yes.
Apparently you like a scrappy Westerner.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
100%. So thank you. Be well, and we'll be waiting.
My privilege too.
We'll be waiting for your book, your new book.
Yeah, next year. Yes.
Next year.
I'm gonna blow you all away.
Can't wait.
I am. I'm making that prediction. I'm gonna blow you all away.
Perfect.
Okay. See you next year.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.